Off. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today, I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Krista Ettles. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
So for those of you that are just tuning in and don't know the backstory, it's kind of an interesting 6 degrees of separation, I'd say, between Krista and myself. So I'm going to say, and feel free to interject here, Krista, if you want, but I would say like 3 years ago or 4.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
No.
I've been buying meat from Big Bear for 8 years.
Wow.
So
Maybe.
I'm lucky enough to be able to purchase the majority of the meat that we consume in our household from a lovely, lovely farmer up in Horsefly, BC. The farm is called Big Bear Ranch. And one day in picking up my meat, I noticed there was another girl there picking up meat as well. And she seemed to be like kind of similar to me just in regards to like her age and kind of like how she was dressed. And I was used to seeing people that weren't too similar to me.
Totally.
So that piqued my interest, and obviously I said hello, and Krista was very kind and said hello back, and we started chatting a bit, and I believe you were buying copious amounts of meat for you and your brother, I believe it was.
Yes. So we share kind of a half a cow or a whole cow or a pig.
Yeah.
So large amounts for a 5'7" girl.
Yeah.
Trucking them in her backseat of her Ford Focus.
Yeah, exactly. So I met Krista there. We obviously didn't really know each other outside of we just buy meat from the same person. And then a few weeks ago or a month ago, I was brought to attention again by a project that Krista was working on with a mutual friend. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I think I know that girl. And then I dug a little deeper, as you can do on social media. And I found out, yes, I do know that girl. And here we are today.
And here we are after the random Facebook message, which was awesome.
You know what? I'm going to be totally honest too. If anyone out there is listening and you want to start a podcast, do not underestimate the power of social media. The DM is a very powerful thing.
Absolutely.
You can get some pretty cool people on your podcast, pardon me. So bring us up to speed then on you and food. Usually I ask the same question to everyone. I'm not going to do that today. I want you just to tell us about your business, what you do, who you are, why maybe you were in that parking lot buying meat from that farm.
We forgot to say that it's a random church parking lot that we met in the back.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell myself and listeners kind of what it is you're doing right now with food.
Yeah, absolutely. So really the gist of it is I teach people the power of good food. And specifically, I teach people how to cook better at home and how to be more confident in the kitchen, because I find that has been a real sticking point over the years for me, is just learning that people don't know how to do that and they're not comfortable with it. So if we can trace backwards to kind of how I got into it, I worked in hospitality for years in my teenage years, over the years, different restaurants, always loved food. Got into a catering business, went into business for myself early on in my 20s. And I did a lot of personal chef stuff as well, where I would come into people's houses and I was cooking for them. So I would kind of cook like a week's worth of meals and then leave them so they didn't have to do the cooking at home, right? So I love that piece of food and just being able to share it and know that, people are eating well. So I had that business for a while, and then catering business can be difficult, as I'm sure a lot of you know. It's a lot of hard work. So I decided to kind of go into more of a corporate world. Ended up in healthcare, working more towards the learning and development. So more of a corporate career, not to do with food at all. But over the years has always just been something that's been a passion of mine. So love hosting dinner parties, love teaching people how to cook. So inherently I've always been doing it. And then I got to a point where I was just like, this isn't fulfilling enough for me. And what's my passion? And it came back to food. And how it relates to healthcare is that I would see so many people come into the hospital that were sick with lifestyle diseases, right? So things that you can actually trace back to how we're living and specifically how we're eating. So a lot of the crap that is in our food now, processed food, things that we're consuming, is making us sicker than ever before. So that's kind of where it started. And it's grown from there. So I do kind of one-to-one coaching, and specifically was doing nutrition and just support in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I found the biggest thing was people actually getting in the kitchen and cooking. Because again, we can talk about nutrition all day long, but as soon as you get to a point where it's like people have to actually go and do the work, they don't do it, because there's always a convenience option out there, right? Because again, there's so many different diets out there. There's so many different things that we can do in the way of like being healthy. But I think the sticking point that's come down for me is the actual cooking piece. So my passion is to get in the kitchen with people and get them as passionate as I am about food, and to really understand where their food comes from and be more connected with their food in general. And that's where, you know, my love of just learning about where our food comes from and knowing local farmers. So our experience and how we met has been a big thing for me too. And just being able to share that with other people and have them learn that there are, you know, farmers out there and where their food comes from, and being more intentional about that versus just having the convenience food and not really even understanding where that food comes from.
Yeah.
Because I could go into that.
Yeah, there's so much that is on the shelves of the grocery stores and in the cupboards of our homes that is just kind of thoughtless food.
Yeah.
And so many times, and I'm guilty of it too at times as well, where you just want to be satiated, or you just want something quick.
Totally.
And I get that, and I'm empathetic towards that, or I sympathize as well. But there is, like you said, it can get to a point where it can be a detriment to your life, like literally your health.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are you seeing, or sorry, not what are you seeing? Who are you seeing are people that are seeking you out? Like, do you have a demographic? They have a certain mindset when you meet them. Are they already in trouble, or are they trying to mitigate the trouble, or does it vary?
It definitely varies. So again, it can be busy moms who, you know, those ones are come to me quite often as far as like, I just don't even know where to start and I don't have very much time. And again, there's this myth out there that cooking has to take forever and that you have to spend hours of the time of your day in the kitchen. So a lot of busy moms, working parents, also people that are just more interested in their own health, right? Which I think all of us in some regard are. So people that are already kind of on their own wellness path and just want to improve that. There's also the ones that are struggling where it's, you know, I just can't seem to keep the weight off, or I just, you know, I feel tired all the time. So it's a varied clientele for sure.
Yeah.
Not necessarily specific.
And the name of the business again?
Nourished Whole is my website.
Whole.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if people, and I want to get right into it right now, we'll talk about it at the end again, but if people do want to reach out to you, how do they do that best? Through the website?
Through the website. I'm really active on Instagram. So if you want to just learn some cooking techniques, I do a lot of Instagram stories. So I'm in my kitchen a lot and I just share stuff
cool.
there all the time. So there's lots of recipes on there. Instagram is probably my most active from a social media end, but yeah, the website too.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do you think, if you could put your finger on or pick one thing, what would be, and again, not to give too much personal information here in regards to your clients, but what is the one thing, aside from the challenge with time, what is the one physical thing, or again, the mental barrier that people have consistently through your varied demographic? Is there one thing that stands out? You're like, oh, I've seen this before, or this makes sense. I've been here before with these type of people. Like, is it a money thing? Is it always health thing? Is it,
I mean, consistently it comes down to the mindset
okay.
of it, right? Like with most things is why are we struggling? Then most times it's the mindset, and that can show up in different ways, but in the end it's mindset. And it's also just like sometimes can be emotional stuff behind that too.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, as I said, we know what we should be doing, but it's actually looking at the reasons why we're not, right? Because food can be used for a lot of other things outside of just the satiation, right? So we can dive into the numbing piece and all the things, right? So it's almost an addictive piece as well, right? And I've heard that so many times where people will say, I know I shouldn't eat cheese because it's bad, like it upsets my stomach, but I do it anyway and I eat the whole thing versus like just having a little bit, right? So there's those mindset pieces and those shifts that need to happen a lot of time in the background. So does
your job or your business a lot of times have to wear different hats? Are you part like therapist and part chef?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you find that challenging to wear different hats, or do you embrace it?
I love it because, again, my background when I was working in healthcare was learning and development. So a lot of coaching, and I do have a coaching certification. So I get to do all the things that I love, which is help people be better versions of themselves, and then also jump into the kitchen and have fun doing that.
Yeah, that's very
Right?
cool.
Like, and there's a whole nother piece about cooking that, there's the connection side to it, right? Sharing food. And that's the whole thing about hospitality is sitting down to a meal together is one of those things that I think as humans, like we all need that connection, and food is something that we inherently all share. So no matter where you go, like, if you've traveled, you go somewhere, and even if you don't speak the same language, people are so excited to share their food with you and to sit down, and you learn so much about someone when you sit across the table from them.
Yeah.
So that's the part of it that I love too. And just to think about getting more people in the kitchen doing that makes me happy.
Do you feel, do you
Just so much
feel
more.
like, yeah, no, me as well. But do you
Right.
feel like the industry is dramatically getting away from that? And the reason I ask that question is because it comes on the show a lot, and it's kind of not a thorn in my side, but it's an issue that I'm very challenged by, is the fact that I feel like the definition of hospitality, and let's talk just about like the restaurant industry
Yeah.
in particular, is changing so much. You're seeing margins for restaurateurs and chefs and business owners decrease so much with restaurants. Like we're talking minimal ability to make money in the traditional models that you and I would know as far as like restaurants. Now you're
Totally.
seeing successful businesses pop up that are doing like the quick service
Yeah.
model, where there's very little interaction, very little hospitality.
Totally.
It's just like, here's the food, it's quick, you're in and you're out.
Yeah.
So do you feel like the desire as a society, and we'll just talk about obviously Canada, North America, is forcing the industry to go that way, or is the industry going that way because it's the only way it can sustain and make a living?
I think a little bit of both, right? Because if you look at the food industry in general and how it's kind of started in that way, and then there's so much money behind the convenience side of food that it's so hard to battle that. And you do see that show up in the restaurants as well. So it's interesting. I haven't really thought about how that trajectory is going when it comes to restaurants, but you're right. Like it's the same thing where it's just quick and easy now versus sitting down and actually, enjoying good food, where it's more of the convenience fast food, people just in and out
Right.
and not even thinking about it, which to me is very, very mindless.
Yeah.
Right. And it just makes me really sad because it's just one of those other things that we're not thinking about, right? We're just kind of going through the paces of life and not slowing down and looking at why do we even eat? Like where did gathering come from, right? Like where did that whole piece of gathering around the dinner table come from? And we're slowly stepping away from that, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that's amazing. We need
more of that.
Yeah,
right?
we need more people like you, and
yeah.
we need more people going out to the restaurants, the traditional ones, and shopping with their
Absolutely.
dollars and spending and supporting those people. So what does that look like if you're trying to change a mindset of person that, say, for example, it is like your traditional nuclear home where you've got a husband and a wife, and they have kids. Both mom and dad are working, and the kids are in school all day, and it's midweek.
Yep.
There could be quote unquote a lot of stresses there, stress on time. So how are you working to affect the mindset and change the mindset of like, let's just like take a minute, collect ourselves, and then like enjoy this process?
Totally. Yeah. And that's where the mindset piece comes down to, right? Is like all the stuff that we're doing in our days, is it really stuff that's important to us? That's a question that I always ask, right? Because when people actually step back and look at that and think, okay, what is my day filled with right now? And is it important to me? Is it the things that I value most? A lot of the times the answer is no, right? So it's those small things of, okay, how can you make that different? Not that you need to change it overnight, but really just resetting yourself and go, okay, what's important for me? Sitting down with my family every night or 3 nights a week. Like I never say you have to do it 7 days a week. Like start with one, if that's what you want to manage, right? And see how it goes from there. And that's how you build habits too, right? Is if you start small, you'll slowly get that momentum and move yourself forward the way that you want to, right? And it just comes down to what you're valuing. And
Right.
if you are valuing that is important to you to sit down and have a meal with your family and connect with your family, again, it doesn't have to take hours. It can take 20 minutes and then you sit down for half an hour, right? So I think that's the biggest piece, is really understanding what your values are and what's important for you, and really how do you make that work so that you can take the time and just reset yourself, as you said, is like, okay, so now this is the time where we're making dinner together.
Yeah.
And involve people too, right? Like I think parents think that they have to do it all themselves. No, like the kids love it. Anytime we get kids involved, it's like get them feeling the ingredients, get them more connected with that, right? I volunteer with a charity called Growing Chefs. I don't know if you've heard of them before.
No.
So they have in-school programs. They have 2 now. And basically you go into the classroom a couple times every other week, I think we did. And it's a full curriculum, and you basically just go in and teach kids about sustainability, about food. They get to get their hands dirty and just understand more about where their food's coming from.
So cool.
Yeah. So I think that we forget that with kids, that, you know, they want to interact, right? And so I get it, the time thing, but at the same time, there's that other piece of connecting right there, is letting them help you make dinner. Right.
Yeah. I'm just reminded of it
that.
as you're saying that. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just reminded of a few weeks ago, we had Chef Ned Bell on the show, and he was saying, yeah, he's great. Yeah. He was saying he doesn't even know if his kids even have home ec teachers, pardon me. And that's just such a strange thing. Yeah. I feel like we as a society we're facilitating, we're feeding this monster that is going to make our kids' lives look way different than our lives.
Yeah. And so that's the piece of like, we're losing that cooking, right? And then we're losing that connection with knowing where our food's coming from and how to prepare it, because of the fact that there's all these convenience foods. And so, you know, you go in with kids like that, and we would do specific examples of bringing produce in and asking them if they knew what it was. And a lot of them would just be like, they wouldn't recognize certain vegetables.
Yeah, I think
shocking.
Yeah, I think I've seen Jamie Oliver do that as well. I think he was asking people, you know, I want to say he had like an apple, and I'm not obviously making fun of the kids.
No, I remember that.
It's shocking that, and the kids are calling it like a potato or like a carrot, and they're just like, no, this is not.
And then when they're the same one, when he grinds up all the chicken bits like forever, gross. And then the kids still eat it though.
Yeah.
Right? Because they recognize it. And so you're right, like the society piece where we're just pushing that sort of food and, you know, getting the kids thinking that it's a great thing and that it's a treat. Right. And so then it's something that they want all the time. Like it's pretty common.
Yeah. I mean, we could go down so many paths of this, like marketing. The other day, I was putting diaper on my 5-month-old, and Cookie Monster was staring me in the face. And I was thinking, actually, I heard a comedian say this the other day, so I'm kind of stealing his bit, but it's just like, why are we already marketing to a girl that wears size 1 diapers, or her, like, I don't care about Sesame Street characters, but
exactly.
And it's always being like pushed down our throats. And so, when kids see McDonald's, they think it is a treat. It doesn't matter how gross the ingredients are, because it tastes great.
Exactly.
So it's definitely a concern where we're going, but I'm really hopeful that people like yourself and businesses like that you have, and shows like this, we can start educating more and giving more of a platform to let people know that you can do it another way.
Totally.
And let's put some effort into doing it another way.
And that's the piece, right? Is like you vote with your fork. That's what I like to say, right?
Definitely.
So as much as it can, again, people go to the grocery store and they sometimes are a little upset with, okay, if you're changing your eating habits and you look at buying organic, you buy local, the cost tends to go up, right? And so it's one of those things that we just, again, have to look at, what do we value? Like, what's important for us? What's the legacy we want to leave to our kids? Because you could go on another rabbit hole about industry and what it's doing to the planet, right? That's another piece of it. So, you know, I think it's just really important to understand what's important and just pay attention to that. And then, you know, you're voting with your fork. So really important.
You have to be super conscious all the time, which can be tiring. And like I said, going back to like just wanting to be satiated, you don't want to think about it. You just want to eat. But when it does truly impact so many different people, but also our planet, you really do need to put that effort into what you're putting into your body.
Totally.
One thing that I am challenged by and would love your input on is that discrepancy between healthy food and accessibility. And yesterday, I spent my very first day volunteering with Backpack Buddies. I don't know if you know what Backpack Buddies is, but so Backpack Buddies is a local charity, and they operate out of schools. And once a week, so on Friday afternoon, they send kids home with a backpack full of food. Kids and families that need it.
Awesome.
These schools would give these kids like breakfasts and lunches would be part of like the curriculum or part of the school. But on the weekends, how do these people afford to eat. A lot
Yeah.
of them don't. They have empty cupboards. And I
Yeah.
was watching a video that they put together, this charity, and I was truly moved by it. But I was also shocked because this is happening here in our city, where these kids that they don't have a choice. They just don't
Totally.
get to eat.
Yeah.
How do you then take a business like yours or a show like mine that's trying to promote like buying from places like Big Bear Ranch or buying an organic apple as opposed to a conventionally farmed apple? How do we bridge that gap, or have you come up against that? And if so, what have you done?
I mean, it's a gap for sure, and it's one of those things that can make me crazy to think about, because it's so sad that you're watching, lower income families don't have any other choice. And so then again, if like that's all you know, it's really hard to change it, right? So I think it's just all of us needing to be more vigilant, and in that, if and when we can afford to make those choices, that we are consciously doing that, right? Because again, that's the only way it's going to change, is if we stop allowing that to be kind of the mainstream, right? And as far as where we're going forward, like again, people that I kind of am working with, it's that same conversation, is just being conscious of it. None of us are perfect, and we're all going to, still make those choices that, unfortunately we are supporting some of the industry that maybe we don't want to, just out of financial reasons. But, those small changes, I think every day can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I just thought of this as you were talking. I thought like, I mean, in no way, shape or form am I living like the most abundant life where I'm just like throwing money all around, but I
No.
definitely can afford to purchase certain types of food and bring them into my home for my family. I think if we all, the people that can do it, start being far more conscious and shopping that way, then, and again, I'm just picturing like the farmer here, then it becomes easier for him to make a little bit more money.
That's right.
And then he can then afford to sell his product for a little bit less.
That's right.
Right. He's selling more of it. So hopefully that, I mean, I'm sure that's pretty elementary idea I just had, but I think even just saying it out loud and then having it recorded on here and blast it out, again, motivate people to do that. Like
Totally.
shop.
And that's the thing, like start small, right? And again, even if it's just focusing on one meal or one thing that you're going to make a shift, that's still going to make a difference. Even if it is one small thing that you're going to choose to, again, buy an organic apple versus a conventional apple. And, it'll slowly move from there. But I think those small choices that we are able to make. And I think the other thing is that people don't realize how far things will actually go when you're cooking for yourself. That was one comment I had a couple of weeks ago, is at first, one of my clients, she was like, my grocery bill is a lot higher than normal. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's talk about that. And, she then realized after going through the process, she's like, wow, I didn't really understand how much this would take us, right? Like how much food we would actually get out of the initial cost. So that's the other piece, right? Is I think people just need to understand a little bit more of how you can make your your groceries go further, right? When you're buying fresh ingredients and you're buying quality ingredients, not only are you eating less, because again, your body recognizes that type of food versus your body eating processed food where it's chemicals and it's salt and sugar. And so it's really just meant to keep you hungry.
Right.
And so there's a big difference there when you can start to eat food in that way. You eat less naturally, and then it also tends to go further, right? You're not eating as much meat at one time. So then you're using it for other things. Right?
Are you yourself an omnivore? Are you eating everything? Yeah.
I do.
And then what are you seeing in regards to your clients? Are they again all over the map? Are they vegans, vegetarians, pescatarians, omnivores, or are you seeing more of a trend?
All over the map. I mean, the pretty consistent ones that I'll come up against are gluten and dairy issues. But
are you seeing that more in the kids or the parents, or is it a choice, or is it a necessity?
Well, here's the question that I ask, right? Is it a choice? Is it something that you're doing because of what someone in society, your Instagram person is saying you should be doing, right? So that's another conversation that we have a lot, is like, what's important to you? And if you're vegan, are you doing it for those choices that, are ethical for you? Great. Awesome. But I think that's another piece of it, is actually doing it for the reasons that work for you personally, in that it makes you feel your best. And yeah, so there's kind of the basic ones of people that do choose to eat meat. Like, we have those conversations of trying to do it consciously. But it is all over the map.
Yeah.
Dairy and gluten tend to be the two that people come up a lot on as far as like intolerance or restrictions.
Right.
But then it'll vary.
Okay. I'm just wondering if you're seeing more of like a push for vegan, because that's such a big thing in the industry right now in regards to like restaurants that are popping up.
Yeah. A lot of conversation about it. And again, I think there's questions of, you know, is it the best thing for me to do? I will definitely promote plant-centric diet for sure. So cutting down your meat consumption and not necessarily eating meat and potatoes every day.
Right.
So it's actually looking at, okay, what else is out there that you can be eating that doesn't necessarily have to encompass around meat. So it's changing some mindset there. And that I think that's probably the biggest one. And that people are just more conscious about it, right? Of like shifting to eating more plants in general, which is great.
Yeah. I think we all should do that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then those grocery bills might not be as high.
And that's the other piece, right? Is like the grocery bills go down pretty quickly if you're taking out that meat.
Right. Although our poor friends at Big Bear Ranch wouldn't like that so much. They say eat meat at every meal.
You would be very sad. But if you're going to choose to eat meat, you know, again, places like that are great. And it's amazing how many we have available to us here in the city, you know, and things like the meat deliveries, Meet Me, I think it's called.
Yeah, Meet Me. Shout out Trevor Bird.
Yeah. Has he been on here?
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So again, there's all these options that make it easy for people in the city, which is amazing. It's just understanding where you can get things. And I think that's the other piece, is people don't really think too much about it.
How did you come to find Big Bear Ranch?
Such a great question. People ask me all the time.
And really?
I don't actually know.
Oh.
Someone told me, I'm sure.
Okay.
And just, it was a random thing of I wanted to be doing something like that and was looking. And I think someone just made a suggestion, but I don't know who.
So again, you guys that I haven't actually really talked about them on the show. So Big Bear Ranch is a farm up in Horsefly, BC, which is near Williams Lake, which means nothing to a lot of you, I'm sure, but everyone local can kind of get an idea. And I always have trouble describing what they are like ethically as a farm, but I always say like they're beyond organic.
Yes.
Anyway, the product is amazing. I absolutely love Reiner, their farmer, and
he's amazing.
I love giving him my money.
Yes.
And knowing that that's where it stops.
Yes.
That's such a cool process for me. And so often we're buying stuff, like you said, even at grocery stores, like great grocery stores. But we have no idea who's behind it. And we're seeing that a little bit change, that you'll see like a face of a farmer near the apple bin, or I had a guest on Just Tea, Paul Bain was on, and they do the farmer from Kenya. They'll put it on their packaging.
Oh, cool.
So you get to see a little more. So we are seeing a change that way, but so many times we're buying stuff and it's faceless. We don't know who's behind it. So when I came to learn of Big Bear Ranch, it was through reading Michael Pollan's Omnivore's Dilemma. And in there he cited eatwild.com. So if you're out there right now and you're listening and you want to find something, a farm in your area that is doing organic or beyond organic, and this is just for the US and Canada, I believe. So go to eatwild.com and then just punch in like your city or your province or your state, and they'll give you a list of people that are on there. And that's how I came to find them.
So
Pardon
cool.
me. Yeah. Have you been up to their farm?
No, but it's on the books to go.
Yeah, their field days are amazing.
And that's another thing that I love about them, is that, you know, you get the newsletters about what's going on at the farm, you know, and like you said, your money stops there. So I think that's something we could all do more of, and even farmers markets here.
Yes,
right?
Great point. Yeah.
We have so many.
Yeah.
And they're amazing in the summer. And then, you know, we've got 2 that run year round now. And then CSA boxes. So another thing of like, if budget friendly, you know, those boxes come every couple of weeks. You can do kind of a customized box too from the local farms. And then you just pick them up and you have your produce that comes to you. You have to get a little bit more creative with the produce because it's what's in season, which I think is really cool too, because it just gives people some opportunity to get comfortable with different ingredients versus, you know, the same carrots and whatever that you're used to. So I think there's great options there. our farmers markets are amazing.
Do
I love
you
them.
do you through your business partner with anyone in particular in regards to like a certain farm or a, CSA
No,
provider? Or is there any farm that you would like to, outside of Big Bear Ranch, would like to highlight what they're doing? Anyone that you kind of come in contact with on the regular, or are you just a
I
free
love
for
them
all?
all.
You love them all?
I
Okay, cool.
do.
Yeah, that's great.
Clippers Organics is one that I really like. Again, a great family run business,
Hmm.
and they're at most of the farmers markets around in the summer. And then I think they're pretty regular at the one here in the winter on Saturdays at Nat Bailey.
Not really. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that one's moved. Oh, you know what? It
It's
hasn't
across
moved.
the street.
It's across the street.
Yeah, just because
Yeah.
it's bigger, which is
Yeah.
great.
It's
So
awesome.
again, more things there. And then just so people know too, if you haven't spent a lot of time at the farmers markets, there's lots of farmers that are there with meat and eggs. And so it's not just your vegetables, fruits and vegetables that you're getting. You can go there and literally do all your shopping if you wanted to, right?
Right.
Breads and
Yeah.
all kinds of great products, local products.
One thing I will say though as well, even when you go to the farmer's market, still ask questions.
Absolutely.
Like, don't just because they have a cool looking booth and they're at a farmer's market, don't just assume that it's ticking the boxes that you want for it to
Yeah.
tick. So ask the questions. Do they
Great
spray
point.
it? Do they spray their apples? Is their beef truly grass fed from start to finish? All these things.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the industry now is those questions are normal.
Yes.
Whereas like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you asked someone where their chicken was from, you'd be like, dude, come on. Like, it's a chicken, just eat
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Now people are like, no, they have photos of their chicken. They show
Totally.
you like what their chicken poop looks like
Totally.
everything. Do you know what I mean? Which
Absolutely.
I think, again, like you were just saying about that market growing, we are seeing those changes, and that's what gets me excited. That's what keeps me going is we have markets that are growing. We have questions now that are standard questions that
Yes,
were before
which is
an
amazing.
annoyance,
Yep.
right?
And even at the grocery store too. Sorry
Yeah.
to
Oh,
interrupt you,
totally. Yeah.
But like,
Yeah. Totally.
there's nothing wrong with asking the questions at the grocery store. And that's what I will tell people too, is don't be shy. You know, like if you want to know where the meat's coming from, like go talk to the butcher, go talk to, the produce guy, ask the questions and really understand a little bit more, because it probably will change some of your thinking if
Definitely.
you start to ask the questions, right?
And I feel so much more empowered as well when it comes to anything, any sort of education. When I ask more questions
Absolutely.
and I learn more, I'm like, okay, like I feel better about buying this equipment for the podcast because I asked questions about
Totally.
it, and then I learned more about it. Now I
Yeah.
can talk about it. And I think it's the same with any aspect of your life. Ask those questions and go in with an open mind.
Totally.
But yeah, don't be afraid to dig deep with
No.
questions. Changing speeds a bit.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a bit about being an entrepreneur. Excuse me, and
Yay.
doing what you do. And I want to because, and I've got a bit of like ulterior motive with this, because I have some good friends near and dear to my heart. One who I'm working with right now back east, who are just trying to get like their feet under them with their businesses, and very kind of similar-ish to what you do. Talk to myself and the listeners a bit about the process you went through to get to where you're at today. Like, how did you sit there and go, okay, this is the business model, this is what I want to do, and then what did it look like getting it up and running and getting your name out there?
Yeah. So as I said, I dove into entrepreneurship when I started my catering business. So I had kind of had a bit of a dabble back then. Just as far as how to get my name out there, I did a little stint on breakfast television, cooked some food. It was awesome.
Okay.
So that was fun. And then when I left my corporate career at the hospital, I actually went into consulting, so more HR, personal development, did some coaching there. And same thing, I kind of was just like, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I don't really think that this is the right move. So one thing I can say is be comfortable with pivoting a lot, right?
Yeah.
Until you figure out
Yeah.
where that niche is and you get comfortable with what works for you. Because if you're trying to push something just for the sake of, being an entrepreneur,
Being stubborn.
yeah, like that's never going to succeed. It has to be something that you really do love, because it's not easy,
Yeah.
right? Like there's ups and downs. And you have to be willing to really fail at it. Like just put stuff out there and see what sticks and what doesn't. And you learn from that, right? So as soon as you're putting stuff out there, you'll kind of see where things stick and where things fall and how you need to shift. How did I put together
Like, were you like, I really,
plan.
do you like, I really like being in kitchens with random people? Was that one of them? Or like, I
No,
feel like I have a ability to connect with people
like,
and educate them on how to cook meals and live a healthier life.
yeah, and where it came down from is just in general helping people to be healthier, happier humans. Like
Right.
that's really what it is.
I like that.
And if you can look at the bigger picture of the cooking piece, as I've said before, like there's so much more to that. Our own personal health, but then the connection with people around us and just supporting that. So for me, it was really just finding what my big why was. And once I found what my big why was, then I'm looking at, okay, what are the things that I'm also really passionate about and really good at too, right?
Yeah.
And I'm good at supporting people in change. I'm good at supporting people, again, coaching them through to kind of be the best versions of themselves. I'm also really good at cooking and teaching. So, being able to combine all of those things together has been really cool.
That's awesome.
And at the beginning, I was like, I don't think I can do like all this, and it has to just be one. And as soon as I was able to kind of step into all of the things, then it kind of just grew from there because it was more authentic from me in that it's just, this is who I am, and this is what I do, this is what I'm passionate about, and this is how I know I can help people and ultimately make a difference in the world, right? Not with the planet, and like all of the things that were important to me has just kind of amalgamated into the business, which is amazing.
We're at your funeral in 45 years from now, 50 years from now.
Let's hope.
What are people saying about you?
Oh man, what are people saying about me? That I had a really good ability to make them be the best versions of themselves.
Okay.
That I had a really good ability to listen and just be supportive and to be able to connect with them.
Amazing.
That's one that I hear a lot.
I like that. That's a good one.
How do I talk about myself? Oh, weird. Yeah.
What does it look like then? Take us through the process. So I connect with you through your Instagram story. I'm super engaged by a lesson you shared on Instagram. So I reach out to you and I say, hey, my name is Brad. I am a partner to my beautiful girl, Lindsay. We have our beautiful daughter, Lena. We have no idea what we're doing with our food, and I want to change.
Awesome.
And there's no sale needed. I'm all bought in.
Yep.
What does it look like? Day one, what are we doing?
So this program that I do is, I call it the Kitchen Crash Course. So it's typically 4 weeks. And right now that everything's just really personalized. So we'll go through and just understand, like, again, what your dynamic is with your family, where you're at, what your abilities are in the kitchen right now. So again, it can range from people that literally can't boil an egg to some that are comfortable in it. They just have lost that passion or inspiration to get in the kitchen. So we'll really kind of go through and understand where you're at, and then what you want to get out of it. In that, why are you contacting me in the first place? Because that's a really good question. Again, is going into your values and like what's important. What do you want to get out of it? And then we will customize. Typically, I'll customize meal plans for people. So we'll actually walk through like a week at a time where here's some recipes, here's some standards around like meal prep, if that's what you want to do. So again, I like to make it really flexible for people. So if meal prepping isn't your thing, that you are going to sit in your kitchen for 2 hours on a Sunday, cool. Some people love that. Some people don't. So it's like really giving people the tools of understanding what will work for them and what's sustainable. So a little bit of prep can go a long way, right? Like making a little stuff ahead of time, and then it shortens your cooking through the week. So typically we'll go through 4 weeks of that, where I'll just kind of customize meal plans, recipes, grocery lists, and make it simple. I also will be available. So if you're in the kitchen and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, then, you can text me or call me or whatever, and I will walk people through it. And then I typically do 1 or 2 sessions in person where I'll either come and cook with them in the kitchen so we can do some hands-on, because I find that helps for a lot of people just to understand the process, and if they can see someone do it and walk it through together. Really cool thing that I've started doing is virtually. So people that aren't even in the city, which is amazing. So like we just connect via Skype and we can do like a little cook along session together. Yeah, so it just really depends, or we'll do farmers market visits or things like that. So really customized as far as what people need, and then just getting them to a point that they're actually feeling inspired and more creative in the kitchen. So that's the other piece that I want people to get is like, you don't have to follow a recipe all the time, right? So based on what you have in your pantry. So we'll set up your pantry so you're comfortable there. Picking up a few things of produce, and then you can pull together a meal without really having to even look at a recipe. That's where I would love to get people at, right? Where they don't feel the need to have to follow that structure. Like it's great. Recipes are great. It's awesome. But in the end, I would love to get people to the point where they're just being creative with it, where they're like, this is some inspiration, but I know what to do.
Yeah, for me, excuse me, food for me is fun when I'm like improving it.
Totally.
Excuse me, and when I can open up the fridge and I have no idea
Yeah.
what I'm gonna make, but then it ends up being this like either sometimes really beautiful and really tasty, and sometimes it looks like dog's breakfast and doesn't taste that great.
And
but
that's the other
but
piece.
you're learning
Yes.
as you, oh, so I shouldn't put
Yes.
18 pounds of pepper on a tomato. That just doesn't, you know what I mean?
Totally. And that's the other part too, is like be willing to fail. And that's the piece, you just got to get comfortable with testing things out and trying it and being okay with that it's not always going to work.
That's where I'm at right now. Sorry, finish your thought.
And then you just have a backup plan, right? Because again, like I have no issue with, if you know what your go-to is, if something gets messed up, that, you have a good takeout spot. But again, just being conscious of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, do I trust this place? Do I enjoy the food, as opposed to just buying something without thinking about it, right? So, you have to be willing to fail in the kitchen.
Yeah, and I think that's again where you learn. It's like anything else. It's like
Anything.
you step out of that comfort zone and you'll learn so much. Like
Totally.
just the other night, we made a meal. Excuse me, sorry. We made another meal that I had never made before. We were having guests over. We love to entertain people.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things to do is to quote unquote break bread. And
Right.
I decided to do this dish with meat from Big Bear Ranch. So I know the quality was going to be there, but I had never done it before and completely just went out on a limb.
Wow.
And I remember Lindsay asking me like kind of halfway through the day, it was definitely going to be, it was like an 8-hour, like slow and low in the oven. And she asked me like an hour before our guests were due to come, she said, have you checked the meat yet? And I was like, look, it's either going to be really, really good or just a complete train wreck. So I said, I'm not checking it until the very last minute.
And
it was fantastic.
Yay.
I loved it. And I don't write recipes down. I should. But I said to myself as I took my first bite, I was like, wow, this is something I should definitely cook again.
Right.
So there I just added another recipe to my repertoire, which is great, which is super, super cool. And I love that. I love when you're dining with people and you see them take a bite of something you're kind of unsure of and they really like it.
Right.
It's worth so much.
Food is love. That's a thing.
Food is love.
Food is love. And that's another piece that I think is so important, is just being able to do that and gather around the kitchen table and sit down and share a meal and just, be appreciated for that. And then, have them appreciate the work that you've done too in the kitchen, right?
One thing I'd love to get your take on as well is consciously eating. And I don't mean like the actual food that we're eating, but when we're eating, being conscious of even how we're eating.
Yes.
Do I have my phone in front of my face? Am I eating in front of the TV? Am I like just eating it so fast? And Lindsay brought this up just the other day. Again, our daughter is super young, but they're just sponges and they're taking in everything.
Yeah.
And at 5, she just will stare at us when we eat. And a lot of times both Lindsay and I are guilty of it. We'll just shovel food into our faces because.
Yeah.
And just the other day, she's like, I think we should really be conscious of how we eat in front of our daughter.
Totally.
So do you promote that as well?
Absolutely. I think that's a big part of it too, right? Because you could be eating all the healthy food and doing all the things, but like if you're in your mind, number one, if you're stressing about your food, so if you're always thinking about, oh, I shouldn't eat this or I should eat this or that the stress actually impacts how you digest your food. And we have what's called a mind phase of digestion. So there's a phase before you actually start eating that if you're paying attention to your food and you're actually seeing your food, and that goes with cooking too, like the smells and just everything, your brain starts that digestion phase. So then your body just inherently will digest your food that much better, right? So I like to tell people is just take 5 breaths before you eat, right? Just stop. Take a couple of breaths and just look at what you got in front of you, right? And just be grateful for that. And the phone thing, huge for me. I mean, we're all guilty of it, right? And we all do it, but it's like just being more conscious about it, of just, okay, no phones at the table. And just really paying attention to the food and just, being more conscious of it, because it does make a huge difference. And you're right. Like, kids see it.
Yeah. And that just brings me back to the whole, I'm just picturing these quick service restaurants where people are sitting down by themselves.
Yes.
And they're eating with their right hand, if they're right-handed, obviously. And then in their left hand, they're scrolling through social media as they're putting food in their face. And again, hey, I've done it myself, and I don't want to sound hypocritical here, but
no, but it's the world we live in, right? And that's part of it. And we I can go back to the beginning here. We're talking about time, and that's the thing, is it's like we are making the choices of what we're doing with our time, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we have a lot of things in our world that are meant to distract us, right? Our phones, TV, like all the things. So it's easy for us to do it, right? It's hard for us not to do it. And so that's the one thing of just being more conscious and understanding, okay, I want to do this for me. Like, I want to slow down, and I actually want to pay attention to what's going on in the world.
How do you then bridge the gap between, I want to grow my business, but I want to facilitate positive change? So for me, for example, right now, I'm stressing out about this like MailChimp marketing campaign that I need to do for my subscribers, and I need to get my like blog posts and my SEO up and all these things. So what I need is people engaging in my brand. Mm-hmm. What I need is people downloading my podcast. What I need is people tuning in and sharing with their friends. So it's kind of, again, it's a bit counter to what you and I are kind of promoting, is like, put your phones away. Don't look at social media. And then I'm like, dude, you got to check out my Instagram stories. Follow me, follow Chris. You know what I mean?
And honestly, like I think social media, and it's a great thing. It can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's how you choose to see it. And that's what I've learned too, because I've been down that rabbit hole starting my business, where you get a little obsessive and you're like, yeah, I got to do this. But I've also learned that is not the way that things are going to grow, right? It's again, being very specific about how you spend your time. So for me, that's more, okay, I'm just intentional of, okay, if I'm going to spend time on social media, I give myself a half an hour and then that's it. Right. Or your email list, like I'm going to spend my time. So it's putting your time in blocks and really specific around focused time.
Right.
Because that's the piece of it, right? I think is if we have 10 tabs open, then we're not getting the work done. So if you're specific about, okay, I'm going to spend this much time on this and this much time on that, but being really intentional that I'm not going to just be scrolling through my phone mindlessly.
Yeah, I had to literally, I had to commit to a few people, and I had to put what I call death ground onto this. So I only give myself now 90 minutes a week.
Wow.
A week on social.
Good for you.
So I need to figure out the balance though, because when I now go on social, because I do want to put stuff out there, I do want to share, and I do want to engage. I'm almost like stressed because I'm like counting down the time in my head, and I don't want that to be my reality.
Yeah.
But I still need to find that balance there. But for me, it was full on. I would look at I write every night about my day that I just experienced, and then my day ahead of me. And so often I would write like what kept me from really pushing things forward. And a lot of times it was social media. Yeah. And I had to admit, like, I'm addicted.
Yeah.
I don't drink, so I'm not addicted to alcohol. I don't do drugs, but man, oh man, do I love some interaction on Instagram, or just like random pictures of pasta dishes. And so I guess my point of sharing that is it can be done, and thank God for technology. And if you're an iPhone user, use that new screen time.
Oh, that one was a big
where it literally like shuts down the apps, and you have to hit ignore if you want to, which I obviously can't do anymore because I'm being held accountable to it. Yeah. But it's an interesting balance in people like you and I trying to grow our businesses and get our brand and our message out there, but at the same time promoting put your phones away. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it is about being very intentional. So for me, when I go on, it's 30 minutes. It's like, you bet your ass I am super specific with what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and I'm in and I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just like, even, how you're setting that, you're not on social media for the weekends maybe, or whatever it is, right? Like just being really intentional of what works for you versus again, what everybody else is doing. So it's really just focusing on what's going to be the most motivating for you, or most balanced for you, I guess, right? It's like, how do you, again, grow your business and share and connect with people and also have the downtime so that you can bring the best of yourself to the people that you're serving too.
Right.
I think that's a big piece of it, is like we get burnt out.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like when you're super distracted and you're always trying to be on, you're not bringing your best self to your people.
No, 100%.
Right?
Speaking of your best self, I want to get your take on, we are currently right now in my neighbor Martin's condo. This is PH15 Studio, PH15 we call it. Martin was so nice to give us this space today for this podcast episode. If Martin was your client, Martin is a bachelor. To give you guys a bit of an idea of Martin. So Martin is a bachelor, very successful guy. He has a beautiful dog. If we opened up his cupboards right now, you would probably laugh. But if Martin said, okay, what are the things I need to have as far as kitchen tools to get started? So what are Krista's tools that you have to have, bachelor or bachelorette, or doesn't matter, married or single, whatever. What are some tools that you must have in your kitchen before you yourself come in to work with them? What do you need to have? So
number one, cast iron pan.
Okay.
Because that will go in the oven. It's multi-use. It's amazing. You can bake with it, anything.
Yeah.
A decent chef's knife.
Okay.
Whatever works for you, but you need a good sharp knife.
Yes.
And I think that's a misconception for a lot of people, that, the sharp knives are going to cut you more, but the dull knives actually cut you more. So invest in that. Stock pot.
Okay.
Always good. Tongs and a whisk. That would be like my desert island things. Crock pot.
Crock pot. Okay.
Yeah.
Slow cooker.
Yeah. I think a lot of people shun that, but man, it'll save you time, and it's the easiest thing to get started because you just throw everything in it.
Set it and forget it. Yeah.
Not even the Instant Pot. Like the Instant Pot is a big thing right now, but no. Yeah. I go old school all the way. You can buy one for $30. Yeah. So super cheap, easy.
You literally cannot mess that up.
It's impossible.
Like throw some things in there you think are good together, and then go to work or go work out or whatever it is you're doing. Come back 8 hours later and it will taste amazing, ridiculously good.
And you make a big pot and you have stuff that you can put in your freezer, and then you have leftover meals for another time.
Boom. So love it.
My favorite thing for sure.
In regards to skills.
Yeah.
So Martin, I don't want to pick on Martin. Martin probably can cook really well. I don't know. I've never had Martin's food, but when you do come into a kitchen with someone that is a little bit green, a little wet behind the ears when it comes to working in the kitchen, are we doing knife skills first? Are we doing how to use a cast iron? Are we learning how to bring water up to a boiling point? What are you generally coaching people on that are pretty new?
Knife skills are usually key. So that's number one, because again, you want to just be able to prepare the food in a proper way. So making sure that your knife skills are up to par. And I think that's the thing too, is people just need to learn the basics. And then the more you practice, the faster it gets. Because sometimes, it'll take people a little bit more time when you're starting, but that's totally normal, as with anything. And then just, the basics around, what foods should be prepared how.
Okay.
Right? So roasting vegetables. What's the temperature to roast vegetables? How do you season them?
Can we share what roasting temperature is for vegetables? Let's go with root vegetables, like our carrots, our beets, our parsnips, that kind of stuff.
So I typically would go around a hotter oven, so 375, 400 for root vegetables.
For how long?
Depends how thick you cut them.
Okay.
But, you typically about half an hour.
Okay.
Would be normal.
And seasoning with any kind of fat, or are you just doing salt and pepper? Are you doing anything? What are you doing?
I always season them. So in a bowl before they go into the pan. Parchment paper is a key.
Yes.
Because they won't stick that way, and you get a proper crisp on your vegetables.
Ooh, hey, there you go. Yeah. Nice little tip for you.
Yeah. And the key, I think, is to just understand, the different cooking times for different vegetables. So you're not going to want to put root vegetables with asparagus. Right. So it's the common thinking of what cooks faster. Yeah. And then, either doing things separately or putting something in at the end. Right. So just really paying attention to cooking times for different things.
I only laugh because I had asparagus not too long ago. I won't say who cooked it, but oh my God, it was just
boiled the crap out of it.
Yeah. It almost turned brown, I think, at some point.
Yeah, I've had those.
And that actually leads me to a great question that I would love to get your take on is you're a guest at our house and we're making you some nondescript meal I've never made before. And it comes out of the oven and I'm eating it. Lindsay's eating it and you're eating it, but you're kind of like, this is terrible. Do you tell me, hey Brad, sorry, I'm not enjoying this, or do you not eat it, which obviously is a sign to me as the host and the person that made it that you don't like it, or do you just shovel it down and then go home and tell your friends that was the worst X I've ever had
There's
before?
no way I would never eat it.
Oh,
unless
really?
we were joking about it and like everybody, like I would never do that.
Okay.
I would probably give some feedback.
Yeah?
In a nice way. Like,
okay, let's just role play for a bit. Hey, Krista, here, try this random meat dish that I made that I didn't season and probably overcooked and tastes like it was run over by a truck. Please enjoy. And then I start cutting into it. Lindsay's like, oh, Lindsay's not saying it, but she is saying it with her body. She's like, this is terrible. And I'm worried that you're thinking the same thing. So you decide to share with me that it is what?
I would ask the question. I would say, how do you think I would
I love the question.
Right?
Yeah.
If you can ask good questions, you are just fine in life. I would ask what you think you could do better. That's
I find that's almost a little bit condescending.
You think?
It's a little bit underhanded.
Really?
I would just be like, I think you cook this too much.
Fair
It's
enough.
a little overcooked.
Yeah.
It's a little tough.
Yeah.
Or did you use salt and pepper when you made this? Because it doesn't taste like you did. I just find that so the reason I asked that question is because I want to know, and our industry needs to know, like restaurants need to know, but we're so concerned with not being liked and being offending people, whether it's in someone's home or at a restaurant. We need to get comfortable with saying your asparagus is brown, it should be green, right? Like we need to be comfortable. And that's because,
and that's totally fair. In a restaurant, I would definitely be someone that would say if it wasn't good.
Right.
But I mean, I would open the conversation at the dinner table. I wouldn't eat it and not say anything. Let's say that. Like we would have a conversation about it.
Okay, cool.
My thinking on it is if someone's looking to get better at it, then I would ask the questions to have them thinking about it. Not in a condescending way. Yeah. But more of a let's open the discussion. Okay. To make it better.
Yeah, I like that. I still think it'd be very difficult to do, but I like it. I wanted to so bad a few weeks ago, and I won't say who, but both Lindsay and I were just like, what? These people usually
you didn't say anything.
Yeah, because I hadn't exercised what I'm doing right now with you and kind of understanding what I do want to do, and I do want to be honest with people, like full on honest. I want people to be honest with me too. Like I said it before in this podcast, if I hit end and I'm like, that was amazing, and you're like, that was terrible. I was super uncomfortable and you asked terrible questions. I want to know because then I will get better. So if the meat dish I made you was undercooked, overcooked, I want to know so that I don't make it for my friends next weekend. Yeah. And then it's just this like, self-fulfilling prophecy of Brad's dishes always are terrible. Well, I didn't know.
But here's the thing is like asking the question of what do you think you could do better makes people think about how they can do it differently. Right. And then like, obviously we're supporting and engaging in the conversation of like, this is what I would do. And this is probably what happened and run through that. But yeah.
Yeah. I think if you can't, as the person that made this dish, we're going off on a long diatribe here, but if you can't take that, your friend is giving you some feedback, then maybe you just shouldn't be cooking meals for people.
Totally.
So
I totally agree.
This show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have for you, Krista, the half a dozen have-tos. Stay with me here. Okay. I need from you 1 to 6, so 1 to half a dozen things you've experienced in your life that you feel like our listeners have to do, whether it's a trip you've taken, a book you've read, a concert you've been to, a meal you've made, a knife you've purchased, something that you've done in your life that you feel like the listeners have to do. I need 1 to 6 of them. So you can do 1, you can do 3, you can do half a dozen. It's up to you. So what are your half a dozen have-tos?
Number 1, you have to travel and have a meal with someone that you don't speak the language.
Okay. Travel comes up a lot, but the whole non-language speaking, sharing thing, food, that has never come up. So I like that one a lot.
Sharing food with someone that you don't speak their language, I think is the coolest thing in the world, because you're talking as food. I said, like, you connect and you get to know someone even if you don't speak the language, which I think is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
1 to 6 things. Oh my goodness.
You can, some people bail out after one. You can bail out after one if you want, but anything that you've done in your life, like I said, a book you've read, you're like, oh my God, guys, this book was amazing. Or a restaurant you've been to and you think, guys, if you have a chance, go to this restaurant.
Oh man, there's so many restaurants. Book I've read.
A cookbook.
There's a million of cookbooks too.
Yeah. If you're drawing a blank, one's good. We can move on to the next one, but it doesn't get any easier. The next one I have for you is the half a dozen haven't yets. A little bit easier in that it's like your bucket list, like your proverbial bucket list. So 1 to 6 things that you haven't done yet that you want to do. So what are your half a dozen haven't yets?
Of course, they're going to be food related. Number 1 is I want to go to Italy and spend a month and learn all about the olive harvest. And I want to learn how to make really good pasta. You're
the 3rd person that's mentioned olive harvest, pardon me. So we'll have to hook you guys up.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's come up a few times. So,
restaurant wise, I really want to go to Noma.
Okay.
In Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Do a little trip there, Europe. To so many things.
This is tough. I put you guys on the spot.
So many things. You put me on the spot for sure. What else do I want to do?
It doesn't have to be food related either. It can be anything.
Well, a lot of it's food related. I want to I don't know if anybody has heard of Dinner Party YVR. I want to bring that back. Do you know Dinner Party YVR?
Are you talking like where you like just random people host people in there? Yeah, I think that was a thing a while ago. And
yeah. So one of my goals is to bring that back.
Is that your brand?
Again, no, it's girls that I know, and
okay, yeah, I'd be all over that.
Stopped doing it. I'm actually talking to one of them on this week, so that's something that I want.
Why don't you rebrand it and do it yourself?
Well, probably going to.
Yeah, cool. Let us know. I'd love to help promote it. Yeah. And I'd love to come check it out.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing thing because it is just about connecting people and,
Yeah, so the idea, again, feel free to inject here, is that just you basically like do a pop-up restaurant in your home where people come. I don't know if this model with people were paying like a flat rate for like a 4 or 5 course, 6 course meal.
Yep.
And then me, the host, or Krista, the host, or whoever's hosting, just literally runs a full service quote unquote restaurant out of their condo or their home. Yeah, I think it's amazing.
And then all the proceeds went to the specific charity by the hobby chef. So the hobby chef chose said charity. So all the money actually went to different charities.
Oh, amazing.
Which I think is really cool.
Yeah, win-win-win.
Yeah. And then a spin-off of that, I had an idea where, you could create a cookbook out of that and just get the stories of the people, right? Because most of the people cooking have a story behind what they're cooking. Typically it's, something from the family. It's kind of more traditional stuff. So I had another idea about that. So that's
trademark, patent pending, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
we're doing it. Okay, we're doing it.
Cool. Any others that you want to add to the list?
Oh man. I would like to do a bike/wine tour in France.
Okay. You got to go to Europe.
I'm going to go to Europe and just spend the whole.
Yeah, spend winter and fall there.
Yep.
I love it. Yep. Can we hold you accountable to this Italy and this France? Yeah, in Copenhagen next year.
Next year, Italy for sure.
Okay.
2019.
When is the olive harvest?
Doing it. It's in the fall.
It's in the fall. So this time next year.
This time next year, we will be talking about it.
Maybe we can do a podcast from the olive harvest, and you'll be there with Natalie from East Van Jam and
oh my goodness, are you serious? There's more than
someone else. I want to say Jana Bishop. I feel like it's all females. Jana Bishop from Grain, I believe that was one of hers as well. And then I want to say Lori Joyce from Better with Ice Cream, but I could be talking out of school here. But definitely Natalie for sure. I don't know if you know Natalie from East Van Jam. She's dope. She's amazing. Incredible entrepreneur and an incredible woman, incredible person. Love you, Natalie. You're amazing. She's talked about it. So you guys should definitely hop on a plane
Yes,
together and get
doing
out there.
it.
Because you guys aren't busy at all. You got the
No,
time, right?
no.
So
Yeah.
easy.
No problems.
Before I do let you go, I want to take a second to thank you so much for allowing me to have you on to my show and supporting my project here on the podcast. We went from randomly kind of knowing each other in a church parking lot where we were purchasing frozen meat out of the back of a truck.
My favorite story.
And now we are here with microphones and earphones and recording a podcast, which is amazing. And I'm super happy to and would love to support you and anything that you do with your brand and your projects here on out. So
Awesome.
Consider myself and all the listeners and the fans, now fans of yours as well. Doing what you do motivates people like me and the listeners as well. So keep doing it and keep working to affect positive change in this very, very dynamic industry and helping people live the best versions of themselves. You kept saying, yeah?
Healthier, happier humans.
Healthier, happier humans. You gotta put that on. You gotta put that on a t-shirt.
Something. Yeah.
Totally.
Gotta do it.
So one more time, if people want to reach out, get in touch with you, work with you, or just touch base, best way to do that is?
Probably Instagram, actually, the more I think about it.
Okay.
Or the website. So you can find me there, Nourished and Whole. The
And
N,
that's-
not and.
And that's spelling WHOLE.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the N instead of and.
I like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Thank
you so much for tuning in as you do week after week. That is Krista. I am Brad. This is the Half Dozen Hospitality Podcast. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Until next week, guys, be good and do good. That's it. We did it. Well done.